I feel bad because my presentation is probably shorter than the introduction. I know that you're probably wondering to yourself, what can the budget director bring to this discussion and why am I here? And I'm sort of wondering that myself. I don't have the experiences that I understand many of your speakers have already shared with you today. I certainly don't have the experience that that young woman had before. I've never been the victim of religious persecution. But if you give me a few minutes, I'm going to tell you how I arrived here and then why I'm here. About 5 or 6 years ago, some of you may be familiar with Congressman Jeff Fortenberry, who's a friend of mine. We served together in the federal legislature. And 5 or 6 years ago, he said, look, there's a very small group of Catholic lawmakers from all over the world that get together every summer for a weekend just outside of Rome to talk about issues that are facing Catholic Christians around the world. And he was looking for a couple of members. It's not open to all the members of Congress. It's a very small group. I think that year we took 3 or 4 members of Congress, and for those of you who aren't familiar, there's about 500 of us. So 3 or 4 of us went. And I'll never forget one of the first stories I'd heard at that time. Our guests at that first meeting were some of the Eastern Catholic leaders. The Christian faith, they're in communion with Rome, but they're not under the Pope. And it was a fabulous sort of cultural exposure for me. And it was the very beginning of learning about what ISIS was, or at least as the world was coming to know what ISIS was. And I remember asking them, I thought that they would be asking me for something very simple. I thought they'd be asking me as a U.S. congressman for help in emigrating, getting out to get to the United States. And I raised that issue. He said, no, that's the last thing that we want. That's exactly what ISIS wants. They want to just remove the Christian presence from Iraq and Syria. He said, no, we want to stay. We just need some help. And I said, okay, that's fine. And we talked about it over the course of the next couple of years. We were able to continue the dialogue. The next year, I came back and met with some of the same folks again, and the message was entirely changed that time. At the opening night dinner, one of the patriarchs got up, and he had spoken the year before and talked to me about, not needing help emigrating, just needing other assistance. And he got down on his knees in front of the podium and said, I know what I told you last year. Forget what I told you last year. It's different now. They're going to kill every single one of us if we give them the chance to do so. And he told me the story about what real terror is like. And many of you may have experienced it firsthand, so I could never give the same impression, the same emotion of somebody who's lived through it. But for someone who's hearing it secondhand, it was powerful. He said that this is what real terror is like. Real terror is living in the Christian quarter in a town in eastern Syria and having somebody knock on your door at night and come in and say, hi, we're here from ISIS. We're here to collect the tax. We know that and I can't remember the name of the tax under Sharia law. Here the tax. Last year it was $5 for sake of discussion. This year it's $500,000. Don't feel bad if you can't pay the tax. We're giving you 2 choices, which is either conversion or death. How do you feel about conversion? The whole family is standing there, and when the father typically would say no to the conversion, they'd kill the oldest child in front of him. And then they'd wait and have the same question again and kill the next child, and kill the mother and kill the father last. And he said typically they would do it only 1 or 2 houses a night. 1 or 2 houses a night. Everybody knew they were coming out again the next night. That's terror. Terror is not knowing what's not going to happen. It's knowing it's going to happen. You just don't know when. And I remember telling him that I had a difficult time processing that as a Western Catholic. I thought religious persecution was trying to explain to my Protestant friends that Catholics really are Christian. Okay? This is something we deal with in the South. It's no big deal. That's not religious persecution. Not being able to get fish in the public schools on Sunday is not religious persecution. On Fridays during Lent. That is real persecution. And as I talked to him about it more and more, he explained it to me in a way that has stayed with me since that conversation, which is, he says, Mick, what you don't understand is, living in the West, living in the U.S., as a Christian, you live in a post-Constantinian world. You live in the world that you don't know what it's like to have been martyred for the cause. It's too remote for you. He said, in the East, we can still be killed for our faith. And there's a disconnect between the East and the West when it comes to that is completely foreign to me. I cannot imagine what that is like. I'm trying to, which is one of the reasons I'm here. We learned other stories, by the way. We learned that also persecution goes much, it's oftentimes stops far short of life and death matters. One of the things that stuck out of my mind the most was we have a large group of men and women from sub-Saharan Africa who came to explain to me and to Jeff Fortenberry, who's on the Appropriations Committee and actually spends the money in the House, how our U.S. taxpayer dollars are used to discourage Christian values in other democratic countries. It was stunning to me that my government under previous administration would go to folks in sub-Saharan Africa and say, we know that you have a law against abortion, but if you enforce that law, you're not going to get any of our money. We know you have a law against gay marriage, but if you enforce that law, we're not going to give you any money. That's a different type of religious persecution, and I'm not trying to put them on a moral equivalency between death and that, but that is a different type of persecution that I never expected to see. I never expected to see that as an American Christian, that we would be doing that to other folks. So why am I here? I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one, just to let you know that there are many, many people in our government, in both parties, who care about the issues that you are going to be talking about over the course of the next couple of days. We simply don't have the time, the attention, the bandwidth to make it our priority. I am the budget director. I run the Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. I have 2 jobs. I have 2,200 people working for me. I don't have time to do it. But I want to help. There are a lot of people here who just want to change outcomes. There are a lot of people in this government who just want to see things done differently. They want to do something. I've been going now to Rome for 5 or 6 years. I've been talking about this for 5 or 6 years. Fortenberry and I have talked several times about how we're tired of talking about stuff. I think we all know now the scope of this problem, or at least we're starting to grasp the scope of this problem. What can we do? I have no idea what the answer to that question is. But I trust Ambassador Brownback, and I'm so excited that the President actually made a commitment as part of this new administration to put somebody of his credibility and his stature in a role like this. I'm just ecstatic that the Vice President is coming to speak to you on Thursday. He has been engaged in this. He's met the same Eastern patriarchs that I met. We actually brought them here. The ICLN brought them here to meet face-to-face with the Vice President, which we've done a couple times now. There is an interest in this government to help people on this issue. So the more you can do to tell us, point us in the right direction, the more we'd greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.